Senator Schatz.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Senator Collins' line of questioning, I guess the analogy is, say a hospital that's running inefficiently, and a turnaround guy comes in and says, I got a plan for reorganizing this hospital. We're going to do delivery system reform. We're going to use technology. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be fearless. And in the meantime, we're going to lay off half of our staff because this thing doesn't work efficiently. The practical impact of that is death. And that's what we're talking about. And so every time we talk about the practical, near-term, immediate, real-world, geopolitical, and humanitarian impacts of what has happened, especially to U.S. aid, you pivot very skillfully and maybe even correctly to what needs to be reformed in the State Department itself and in the interaction and relationship between aid and state. That's not what I'm asking you about. I'm asking you about why in the world we wouldn't do this in the regular order. In order to put U.S. aid under the State Department and better align it, we need a statute. In order to reform all of these programs, we need an SFOPS bill. You can't just come in and light the place on fire and say, well, it was a mess. And so I just want to understand what's the path forward, because people really are dying. It's not as though Catholic Relief Services or CARE or the World Food Program or a bunch of leftists coming out and complaining about everything that's happening because they want to get you. This is actually happening. People are vacating where they work. And then in some instances, the Chinese government comes in and provides the exact same service, not a similar service, but the same program. They just do it. We'll do it. And then in some instances, nobody does it, and as a result, people die. And so I'm just wondering, where do you think the path forward is for us to work Article 1, Article 2, former colleagues, to get this thing back on track?
Well, I think the first path is, let me just say on the regular order part, sure, we want to do that. It would be great to make all these things statutory and codify them. That would be ideal. I will say I was a member of this body for, 6, 12, 30, 40, 16 years, and we always talked about doing it by regular order. We never got to it. So now's the time to do it because we really have to do it now. The second point I would make is the U.S. is going to continue to be a very generous donor for humanity. I would venture to guess that for the rest of our lifetime, no nation on earth, if we can still afford it, no nation on earth will continue to do more for humanitarian assistance, for food and medicine and life-saving services, and even for developmental assistance. But I also think we have to recognize this. We cannot continue to be the foreign aid provider for everyone on everything. We just can't do it. We can't do it efficiently. And we cannot afford to do it either. And if we're going to, we do not have unlimited resources. And so we've now entered an era, particularly of geopolitics, where we have to be very careful about where we invest our money, where we provide aid. Humanitarian systems aside, okay, you have a mudslide somewhere, an earthquake, a hurricane, and we're going to help people. I don't know how much we would want necessarily geopolitics to play into those sorts of decisions.
What's the proposed budget cut in the humanitarian accounts?
Well, it's not the humanitarian account right now. Basically, is the rest of it is reflected at over 50% in the proposed amount that you have right now before you. But we believe that we can provide these essential services while reducing some of the redundancies that were happening through this, for lack of a better term, this foreign aid industrial complex. Some of these projects, I think you understand this perhaps better than most. Some of these projects had a prime contractor who had a sub, who had a sub, who had a sub, who had a sub, who had a local provider. That's crazy. That's lunacy. Why do I need 6 subs to pass one to the other to ultimately get it down to the ground? I think we can get it maybe from the prime to the sub. In some cases, directly to the group on the ground through our embassy. Our embassy can say, we want to provide food in this community. Here's the best people to do it. And I can avoid all those layers of NGOs.
Part of the problem, right, is our tolerance for risk. Because if we establish a bunch of criteria and requirements and pre-audit, then you increase administrative costs, right? And I'm one of these people who thinks that it's not unreasonable to start to capitate or slowly ramp down administrative costs. But administrative costs are not 88%, right? That 12% versus the rest of it cut is what money goes to local NGOs in Africa or or Asia or Pacific Islands or wherever. And we should be increasing that number, and we have been increasing that number. But it is the precipitousness with which this is all being done that is actually causing reputational damage. A lot of us are doing CODELs, and when we sort of go overseas and we sort of, temporarily take off our partisan hats, we interact with the same providers, and we see kids on half rations getting smaller and smaller. We see kids getting HIV/AIDS from their parents, and nothing you said, in order to implement anything that you're talking about, is it necessary for us to allow children to die? And yet that is what's happening. And so can we please separate these two questions of should we reform the State Department, should we reform the foreign aid enterprise, and should we do it in such a catastrophically unlawful way that people around the world die and people come to believe that they can't believe that America is a reliable partner anymore. And so if we can please separate these questions and get to writing a bill, I think the country will be better for it.